Hello, and welcome to episode 116 of the Rewards Canada podcast. In this episode, we are going to discuss and dissect the WestJet Rewards elite status changes that have been announced for 2025. We're going to discuss these with the former head of WestJet Rewards and a current WestJet Platinum tier status member, Saul Zia. Saul is currently the executive director of the Calgary Hotel Association. So Saul has been a longtime friend of mine, work colleague, and I would like to say at time an advisor to Rewards Canada. We've done so much together for well over a decade now. Some of you may actually recognize his name as he has contributed to the site in the past, and including giving away Maple Leaf Lounge passes on numerous occasions to some of our readers. So welcome to the podcast, Saul.
I forgot about the Maple Leaf Lounge passes. It's been great collaborating with you, Patrick, for more than 10 years.
Yeah, it's definitely been a long time for sure. So I think we're gonna have lots to talk about. So we'll dive into it right away. But why don't you quickly tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself? I mentioned you were the head of WestJet Rewards in the past and Calgary Hotel Association, but what else can we know about you?
Sure. Well, I started as an airline person. So I actually, back in the day, started with Canadian Airlines, which was acquired by Air Canada. Soon after 9/11, like many in the industry, I sought other pastures, and it was actually many years where you and I met was when I was at Loyalty One, working on some parts of the Air Miles program and then international ventures and American ventures for Loyalty One. That's where you and I really got to know each other, and we did a lot of collaboration on the loyalty landscape. And then was quite a few years at WestJet Rewards, WestJet and WestJet Rewards, and now at the Hotel Association, where my frequent travel gets me to earn platinum status on WestJet.
A good background. Like you said, you've been in it for a long time. I think Canadian Airlines,
Mm-hmm.
that was pre-2000, wasn't it? So it's been quite a while that you've been
I started in
involved.
1994.
94, yeah. So you've been involved in the
In the
whole
airline
travel
industry.
we're 3 decades now. Yeah, it's
Don't
2024.
remind me.
No, yeah, sorry.
Don't remind me.
we're you and I are becoming the dinosaurs in this era
Exactly.
of the
The
market
90s
now.
is 30 years ago.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
definitely something
Yeah,
to think about.
it is absolutely. All right, so why don't we dive into what everybody is probably interested in hearing is, and this is great. I'm so happy to have you here because you are a platinum tier status member, and the whole elite status program with WestJet Rewards was actually launched during your tenure there. Like this was
It
partially, I
was.
don't know if it was fully your baby or partially your baby, how it worked, but yeah, I know that it was launched while you were there.
Yeah, the evolution of silver and gold, the incorporation with the WestJet RBC MasterCard was part of it. The evolution towards creating platinum. So some of the migration around milestone rewards and the creation of that top tier were part of the things I was working on before I left WestJet and went over to the Calgary Hotel Association.
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of members are happy that you did that. A lot of flyers who are loyal members to WestJet and have had that status, so that's great. So that gives you a lot of good background. So just so our readers and listeners and viewers know, there is a lot of knowledge here behind the whole WestJet Rewards ecosystem and how their elite status works. So the first thing that was announced was the changing to the increased tier qualifying spend thresholds. Those haven't been changed since I believe since this launched while you were there. Silver was 3,000, gold 5, platinum 8,000. So for next year, that's increasing to 4,000 for silver, 6,000 for gold, 10,000 for platinum. Personally, I don't see this as a huge change. I think that's kind of getting with the times, inflation, and all that. I will make the comment. There's always that whole issue of how much of the base fare you're actually paying, right? And that what's
Mm-hmm.
qualifying, like how much money is being, or how much of what you're paying is actually being shifted to other ATC. So what do you think of,
Correct.
these changes to the tier qualifying spend?
I understand them, right? So the move from silver to 4, the move from gold to 6. I think from talking to business travelers, and when you travel on business, you talk to business travelers. I believe the jump to 10 might be too much, like maybe a jump from 8 to 9. The reason being, and you nailed it, it's only the base fare that's calculated towards your status, whether it's silver, gold, or platinum. And when you look at the ratio let's take domestic travel. So a lot of folks who earn platinum status, there are international travelers, but it's business travel, transborder, a little bit of international, and a lot domestic. And when you look at that ratio of base fare to actual, entire fare paid or ticket cost,
Yeah.
um, it's like, maybe 60% of your ticket cost is base fare. So a $10,000 spend is probably in the ballpark of 15 to 16,000 in ticketed. And that's a lot when you think
That
of
is, yeah, that is a lot for
business
sure.
travelers and those who travel frequently.
Yeah.
16,000 in spend is a lot depending on how you travel. So I think my first and the reaction for many of us is the jump from 8 to 10 too much? And that would really be up to WestJet to analyze. Okay, we have a lot of people who do spend 10.
Yeah.
So when we shift to that by 2026, because it'll, kind of a whole year, you'll have to earn in 25, that they do see there's a lot of members. But my first inclination is that it's the $1,000 increments at silver and gold should apply to platinum as well.
Yeah, no, that really makes sense, and I think that's really good insight on that. Like I understand even like the gold, like when I met with WestJet prior to these changes launching, they were saying that some people would receive gold with just one business class flight. So I guess it depends where they're flying. I mean, yeah, business class more of the base fare counts because when you're say flying to Europe, you're not going to be getting a lot of base fare on an economy class fare. Those are super low, like $100, $200 on $1,000 fare. But business class for sure. I know they were saying there are some people who are achieving gold just with one flight, and these are people who weren't really loyal to WestJet. They may have just been taking one flight because it was conducive for their schedule or worked right for them. And then you have all these other people who may be flying every week between say Calgary and Grand Prairie, something like that, and they're not reaching gold status because the fare difference. So I understand that as well. Kind of that change, especially for the gold. I think that's where WestJet was kind of really focusing with me was that maybe to thin out the gold ranks a little bit.
Yeah, although let's touch on that. Like, so now that I'm, not there anymore, and I can give my honest opinion, to give gold to someone who travels once on a round trip international business class flight, does that really stimulate them to fly more on WestJet? Because they only flew once. They're
True.
in gold. So I wonder about how loyal those individuals would be that earn gold through one trip versus, to your point, the Calgary Grand Prairie, you might fly 40 times
Yeah,
um, and is doing whatever they can. And then looking at maybe I need to switch to Air Canada on a comparable route. And you've got Porter coming into the market.
that's
And,
right.
I think rewarding once a year travelers, from my perspective, is maybe not the outcome WestJet would want.
That's right. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense for sure. And then yeah, so I think going back to the whole base fare thing, I think this would be a whole nother discussion for us, and that's coming down to the credit card companion voucher
Mhm.
because a lot of people I know I hear back for feedback from users of the card that they've never used the companion voucher because they can't fly to Europe on it because the base fare is so low. So I think there's a lot surrounding that. I think we'll save that for another podcast perhaps to discuss
Sure.
because right now we're looking at the status changes. And I think I should let people know too, this is only the first set of changes that WestJet has promised for 2025 with the WestJet Rewards program. They're saying it's going to be the biggest year in the history of the program. So I think we're going to see a lot more changes, not just to the elite status, but just to the program as a whole. So I guess maybe once we see everything, once everything's in place, we can take another look at this and have another
For sure.
discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next thing they talked about, or the next thing they changed, is the rezoning of priority boarding. So Zone Ones is exclusively platinum now, and then premium business. So gold is being kicked out of Zone One, but Zone Two, so that's going to be gold and silver. Silvers were Zone Two before, as well as guest and extended comfort. But what they've done for Zone Two is they've taken out the last 14 rows. Some of the people who were added into Zone Two. So Zone Two strictly gold, silver, and extended comfort. Your thoughts on the priority boarding?
I think it's a great move. So to have platinum and premium and business class be zone one, I think when you're expecting that much spend from a platinum, they should be rewarded with that zone one and that zonal. Because when you get into that type of traveler, they're typically traveling carry on. They might not have checked baggage. They might, but very often don't have checked baggage. So that zone one, I think that's a great move for WestJet because the platinum members and those in premium business want early access to the overhead bins and to be not have that anxiety or stress of whether
Yeah.
they'll be able to get their bag above in
Yeah,
the
I agree
overhead.
with I agree with that. And I even think, being gold for zone two is not bad. I mean, considering there's not going to be
Agreed.
they're taking out some of the other things, you're still going to have, access to overhead, bins. There should be enough room there even after the platinums and premium customers. So I don't think it's too bad. I mean, I've heard some feedback from golds who are not happy about it. I think there's always that notion. It's like, oh, I was like, always able to be the first to board, and now you're not the first to board. So it's a little hit to gold, but I think in general, I don't think they're going to notice much of a difference.
But there aren't that many platinums, right? So when you think about, depending if it's a 737 or 787, once the front is loaded, business and premium, for the economy section, zone two is pretty good for,
Yeah,
gold, silver only, because you kind of know who's going into zone one. And WestJet, I've admired WestJet's discipline about really enforcing the zonal boarding, because that's how you keep people loyal. So I think for the golds who are unhappy about moving down to zone two, when you think about who's in zone one, you'll still have lots of access to overhead bin space.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree. Like I think I wrote about it in my blog post. I'd have to reread my blog post, but I think I was okay with this move, with this
Mhm.
overall this move for sure. Um, so that moves us into the next change that they were talking about. That's going to kick off on January 15th, and that's the expanded eligibility for complimentary upgrades. So this is where it's not just the elite member; it's now elite member and one companion traveling on the same reservation that can be upgraded. What do you think of that change?
That's a bit tricky. Like I agree with the sentiment, but as a platinum, and my most frequent route is Ottawa, Calgary, Calgary, Ottawa. So I kind of get to know some of the faces, and we all kind of look at what are our chances of the complimentary upgrade, because we didn't get it. They do have the, for platinum and for gold, I think still they do have the pre 24-hour check-in, where they clear if they have a lot of seats that are available. If there's a lot of seats available in premium, you usually get one. But if you don't get that notice that your seat has changed, let's say at 28 hours before, you're vying for one, maybe two seats. So then about a lot of the platinums, we know we all have our methods as frequent flyers. You go in and see if you can buy a seat. Is there a seat available? And then you can actually see how many seats. You go right up to the point where it says do your seat selection. Then you can actually see how many seats are available in premium. Typically, it's only one. And then we're all looking at each other as to who's going to get that little circle on their WestJet boarding pass that says they're upgraded. So I think it's good. So when premium is empty, so to speak, I think it'll be good for those who are traveling with others. I think for the last minute, though, it's typically one seat on a 737. So I don't
Yeah,
think that, I think the traveling with a companion will still be a problem. And I don't think, there's any notion to split people up.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have to see on that one.
yeah. We'll have
I
to
think
see how it
the I
goes.
think the sentiment is a really good one. I just wonder if it's in actuality,
Yeah,
if platinums and golds will actually see the benefit.
it will. Yeah, if you'll actually see the execution of the Bennett for sure. I mean, that's something we've talked about before. Is that yeah, the 737s in the premium cabins are usually quite full, especially on the major routes, like you said, Calgary, Ottawa, Calgary, Toronto, probably Vancouver,
Hmm.
Toronto. All the popular routes, they're pretty full to begin with for premium. So to get two seats may be difficult. Maybe on some of the 787 routes, because premium economy cabin's bigger, there might be a better, opportunity or better chance of getting that upgrade for companion, which I mean, I guess is a good benefit for status members, because if you're flying on the 787 with a companion, good chance it's not for business, it's probably for leisure. So maybe you can be bumped up from economy to premium economy, with the bigger cabin there. But again, it comes down to how full that cabin is. But we're also talking about seven, 787s versus however many, what is that,
Hmm.
over close to 200 737s in the WestJet fleet. So the percentage of expanded cabins is very little compared to, the 737 flying.
Yeah, and if I can add, I'll be interested to see what the rules are, to see who gets. So let's say you're right, like 787 flying to Hawaii, and often people don't buy premium, so there's ten seats. Well, in the old world, if you're traveling by yourself as a platinum, there's 10 platinums to be upgraded. Now I'm wondering what the rules are within the system. So now that you've got five couples, say, who's the platinum with the highest fare? Is it the platinum who's been the longest platinum? Like, what
Oh
differentiates
yeah,
one platinum or gold from another? Because they're going to go down the platinums
that's
first,
right. So the priority
and then
basically, yeah,
so you're basically going to have a companion to a platinum that takes a seat away from another platinum, right? Because
yeah.
once
So I'll
you've
be
got the
yeah,
couple upgraded, so I'm curious to see which, might be something that you understand from your conversations with WestJet, how they're actually going to rank everybody to get those premium seats.
Yeah, I'll be sure to ask them too, because I'm sure we'll be meeting again while when they release more of the changes to the program. So I'll remember to ask them that one for sure as
Yeah.
well. So that was the upgrade. So the next one they talked about, this is the big one. This is the one where I think a lot of people are waiting for, is the adjusting of milestone award levels and choices. So as people are aware, right now, basically you get a milestone award, which most people grab the companion voucher. It's a $0 companion voucher, no less, at basically every $2,000 of qualifying spend, starting at 4,000. So 4, 6, 8, 10, and so forth and so on. In 2025, it's now going to be 2,000, 8,000, 12, 16, and then it's going to jump, do another 4,000 jump to 20,000, and then it jumps by $10,000 to 30, 40, and 50 in qualifying spend. So a lot of people are saying you've really decimated the milestone awards in that you can earn a lot less. Like for somebody who spends 12,000 a year, you're going to get, I call it 2.5 awards, because that 2,000 milestone award, there's no voucher in there.
Hmm.
Versus what was it? I think it was 4 or 5 in the old program. Let's see, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That would have been 5. So you're getting 2.5 versus 5. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know what, I'd have to understand the strategy, right? So the 2000, from my understanding, the 2000 might be 20 WestJet dollars and some
that's right.
status like some, some
Yeah, you
helpers,
get to
kind of like
pick one. You
status
get to
lift.
pick one of three things. Yeah, it's the 20 WestJet dollars, or 25 skip gift card, or $200 qualifying spend. Yeah,
That's another one where I think the increments are too vast. So to go from a $20, I have no idea. I don't use Skip the Dishes, so I have no idea what the value is of a Skip the Dishes
yeah,
voucher. There
it'll be
must be some
25. It's
analysis.
25 is 25. Yeah, it's
Yeah, there
basically
must be some
$25.
analysis somewhere that
Yeah,
shows WestJet Rewards members top tier have some propensity to skip the dishes. So I can't speak to that one. But a $20, 20 WestJet dollars at 2000 is, for those who are already frequent travelers, I can't imagine it being a very high value. I think having to wait all the way to $8,000 for the first companion voucher, I believe that's a stretch. Like, because it used to be 4, 6, and 8, so you'd have 3 companion vouchers by the time you got to 8,000.
yeah,
Um, Now, in WestJet's defense, they think they're expanding the expiration of those by
two
to two
years. Yeah,
years.
yeah,
So instead of being a 1 year, and it's gone 2 year. But I still think waiting until the 8,000 might be a disincentive to those who, I'll share. I also have status on Air Canada, and there comes a certain point where everyone sits and goes, okay, where am I going to put my dollar? Where am I going to put
yeah,
my bum in my seat? To whom?
exactly.
And I think, the companion voucher, people might, just personal opinions, is some frequent flyers might be checking to see where Canada has taken Aeroplan.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely have some people thinking about switching allegiances, or like you said, or maybe only going for gold with WestJet and then moving over to Air Canada. There's a lot of things that can happen here for sure with those changes. Yeah, and then with these milestone awards, so they are expanding the voucher expiry, even including current vouchers from this year. So that
Hmm.
helps kind of, I guess, soften the blow a little bit, because if you're in a lot of vouchers this year, you're going to have quite a few still to use. But for probably 2025, but then come 2026, I think that's when we're really going to see the effect of how many people are getting these vouchers. So I
Hmm.
think there's definitely, I think that's what some people have in consideration, especially people who are using them quite a bit. I'm sure some of the frequent flyers earning that many vouchers, they're not using them all up. Like you can,
Hmm.
because every $2,000 unlimited, basically, some people could be racking up a lot of those vouchers and aren't using them. So I'm sure some just go unused. So it's not, for some people, it may not be that big a change, but in general, the feedback I've heard is that, yeah, people are not happy with this right now.
Yeah, you bring up a good. So those, back when I was at WestJet, there's a lot of people that earn vouchers because they're flying from the Maritimes or Atlantic provinces all the way to Calgary, then Calgary up to Fort McMurray. A lot of oil and gas workers, and they would accumulate so many vouchers. But the voucher that's unredeemed has no cost for WestJet at all.
That's
Like,
right.
it's not a real cost until um, someone tries to redeem it. So those who would earn like 5, 6, 7, or 8 vouchers but not use them, because there's only so much human capacity
Yeah,
for vacations and using those. Um, I'll go back to my answer. I think going, probably something at least in the $5,000 range to me would make sense. Like, just to get someone who's considering, to at least get them incented to go to gold.
yeah,
Because
exactly.
if you're only get an incentive at 2,000, and you're like, well, what should I do? Where should I put my money, and where should I fly? Would it help you get to gold knowing you have to wait till $8,000 for the milestone voucher versus getting it when you earn gold, for
Yeah.
instance? So why not 6,000? So golds and platinums get that voucher.
See,
So
that would be
I'm
perfect.
not
Yeah.
sure I understand the analysis
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean,
I,
I know
I don't
there's,
get
yeah.
that one.
I mean, there's lots of speculation. I mean, we could probably talk for hours, is it this whole shift of WestJet going back to its leisure roots, not like roots, but it's our OOTS, like its roots of being more of a low cost leisure
Mhm.
airline? Or is it, like, do they not want the business travelers as much? There's so much different speculation and questions as to, the changes. Or is it strictly they looked at the numbers and they figured, this is what we can do? I like your idea of 6,000 having that first, having the first voucher, first milestone awards, that both a gold, you get it at gold, and you strive for that platinum, and you've already got one. It's the same thing with that 2,000. That 2,000 is supposed to be, it's like Alaska Airlines. They now have a milestone award before you even hit status, and I think it's kind of dangling that carrot, right? It's like, hey, we're giving you something for being, pretty loyal to us. Continue being loyal to us, and we're going to give you more once you reach that elite status. But I'm just wondering if it's enough. And the same thing could be done at 6,000 by giving that companion voucher when you hit gold. That just may be enough incentive for somebody to push for platinum. So
Agreed. Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
yeah,
And if
yeah,
they do follow through with the 2 and the 8,000, um,
yeah.
yeah,
I'm
that
curious if
and
they'll. I'm curious if they'll watch or listen to the podcast and see if we'll see any updates or changes. You
yeah.
know, we'll
Well, they
see.
still have time.
They still have time for sure. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think going back to that, terms of the milestone awards, there was something I was just thinking of. Oh yeah,
Well,
that's WestJet did promise that they're going to bring out more benefits to the milestone awards. That's what they told me in the meeting. Something will be coming that should more than make up for these changes. So if that was you, if you were still at the helm, what do you think those benefits or those extras should be? If you're going to have such a big spread in qualifying spend before you get these milestone awards.
I kind of go with the spread the love element, right? So, there are things that haven't really surfaced yet or haven't read about lounge and lounge access and the seat vouchers. So one of the, a pretty valuable platinum benefit is when you're traveling with someone else, you can at least use seat vouchers. So I think seat vouchers, lounge access, some of those things that are expanding, I think those should all be on the table
Yeah, so
for, because,
additional, because you get some of those,
yeah.
right? I believe I mean, golds and platinums get lounge access, I believe. But yeah, I think that you said share the love. So are you saying more for like that you get to share with other people? Because I know they got rid of the gift the gold award,
Mhm.
for the vouchers. So
Yeah, and they got rid of gift of gold, and they still have you currently you have the option to convert your milestone companion voucher to gold status for one round trip flight for anyone, and or you can convert them to lounge vouchers to give away to anyone who's depending on when they're traveling. I think so currently you get I believe six seat vouchers when you earn platinum. That would be one where because in my case I ran out of them for friends and family to traveling with me on flights. So that might be one. So there's areas, and then the lounge access. Yes, platinum. One thing that I do give WestJet a lot of credit for is they do manage their lounges now, and so platinums never have to wait. If they're
no,
at
that's good.
capacity, if you're using anything beyond status to get in,
Yeah.
you might have to wait in line.
Yeah,
Whereas the
that was that
platinums
was
just
that, that
walk
was
to the
me.
front.
That was me the last time. I was flying with WestJet just a couple months ago. It was, because I was going in with my platinum card, American Express platinum card. Don't have the platinum status. Wasn't flying business class, and that's all they were letting in was platinums and business class because it was at capacity. Of course, it was late afternoon before a couple 787s were departing. A lot of flights. So it was right during busy time. So not a big loss, but just to confirm that it is happening, that they are, like you said, limiting. But if you are platinum, there are no limits. You always get to go in for sure, and business class.
And that does give value. Like those are
Yeah,
incentives to keep flying and keep your platinum status. And WestJet, kind of like zonal boarding is getting very good at that discipline. I don't know how happy the folks are in line when the platinum strolls up and goes right
Yeah.
in, and you're standing in line outside the WestJet lounge. But that's
Nice.
actually valuing the high
Yeah.
frequent the frequent flyer as they
So
should be, I guess,
So
valued.
would you foresee something like, so if they're saying they're going to make some additional benefits or at these award levels, do you see something like, say, guaranteed upgrades being a
Well,
valuable one, like especially like to business, when you're flying on the 787s?
I mean that's sort of kind of the value proposition with Air Canada, right? You get your e-upgrade
Yeah,
credits, which you
yeah,
can use, and you can then figure out where you want to use them. I'm going to put a maybe on that one. I do think WestJet's platinum complimentary upgrade, like I would say I'm upgraded 50% of the time. That's pretty good, right?
that
I,
is,
I
yeah,
can't
absolutely,
say on Air Canada, you have to like really figure out where you want to try to apply the upgrades, and you might not always win. So you might hoard your upgrade points because you want to fly um, Vancouver Halifax, or Vancouver Toronto, like a 787 route, but they're also high demand, right? So you didn't
that's right,
use them, but you might have used them for Calgary Saskatoon or Calgary Regina or Calgary Winnipeg, um, where they could have actually easily been used. Whereas on WestJet, on a lot of those routes, you'll get the upgrade. You don't have to worry about. So, my point of view would be to not totally disrupt the complimentary upgrade. I think to your point, our conversation, once we know how they rank platinums for those seats, and I bring up platinums because I rarely have seen a gold when I'm at the gate getting upgraded when there's only a few. Like they go to the
yeah,
platinum first.
oh, exactly, yeah,
Um, and it might be tougher for golds to get upgraded if platinum companions are getting upgraded as well. So we'll have to, kind of see in all of this. So
yeah,
yeah, maybe some sort of guaranteed method. But my point of view is, but if it comes at the disruption of the complementary upgrade system, you might have more unhappy people
yeah,
who,
that for
like someone
sure,
like
yeah,
myself who says, "Well, I get upgraded 50% of the time. If I'm upgraded 0% of the time, but I have to use some sort of credit system, well, then it's not very different from Air Canada."
yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just trying to throw out because I'm trying to think of what else they can add as a benefit, and I can't really
Yeah.
think of much. Much more than they could add in terms of how can they bring more value, to the Milestone Awards beyond what they're doing. I mean, complimentary vouchers are great. You're going to get less of them now. So I'm just trying to think of, I guess I'm just, you know, wish I had a crystal ball to see what they're planning, what they're going to give us. So
Well, one thing, all WestJet Rewards members earn WestJet dollars, and I think, I've heard a few people, just on the plane saying, "Oh, I wish I could redeem my WestJet dollars for a snack or a beverage or
oh yeah,
some of the paid things." So I wonder if there's anything they're looking at in terms of the ability to redeem those WestJet dollars in flight.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
so that would be for
you know,
everybody, not just the elite status. But yeah, so that'll be probably, and that's where I'm going to have you back on for sure. The podcast once we learn the additional changes to WestJet Rewards that are supposed to be coming beyond the elite status and all that. So I think the last thing we'll touch upon in the podcast is they are mentioning very briefly that there's going to be something happening where you can probably earn elite status at home, kind of like how Aeroplan has their everyday status qualifying, where you don't even have to fly with the airline. So I'm assuming that'll have to do with the credit card, but maybe some additional options. What do you think of that? Like of doing that every day at home type elite status qualifying?
it's interesting, but at the end of the day, they're an airline, and their profitability is based on people buying tickets and flying. So I don't know much about WestJet on that, but I'm curious on that one because no one on the Air Canada side, people who often take that's a really expensive annual fee on the Air Canada
Yeah,
card. When I chat with them, they're like, "Oh, but it just wasn't enough. Like to pay the $599 annual fee and enter up the status, it didn't quite cover, like what I got didn't quite cover a very high annual fee."
yeah,
So, that sort of and that's a stay at home where you just use your credit card and
that's
you
right.
pay the premium annual
Yeah.
fee and you get that and you get some
So
value.
it
But
gives you some, yeah, it gives you a little bit of elite status like benefits. You get the priority boarding, things like that. But yeah, it's not full elite status. And yeah, and the everyday qualifying at home, you have to earn 100,000 qualifying points, to receive Aeroplan 25K. So it's not like it's a minor amount of points to get that status. It takes a lot,
Mhm.
And I mean, there are people out there who put 20, 30 grand on their card every month. People are using it for their business expenses, and they'll have that 25K after 3 months. It's easy to do,
Right.
but for majority of Canadians, it's a stretch for sure.
For WestJet, uh, it's worth testing everything.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, test it, and
Yeah.
you'll learn very quickly from your loyal, most loyal. Are they more loyal or less loyal after a year?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, and that's what we'll see. We'll see how long these changes, because there's nothing saying that they may pull back on some of these changes that they've already announced, right? For the elite status. This is what's happening right now. But, if there's enough pushback or changes in revenue, we may see, them bring some things back. I mean, it's happened in the loyalty industry. I think less so on the airline side, but, I think a good example is Expedia in the US with, hotels.com. They got rid of hotels.com rewards on the US side, made it their whole
Hmm.
one key program, and bookings dropped like crazy for hotels.com, right? Because they had such a valuable program. So now they've paused the release of that program outside of US and UK because that's the only place it's been released, hasn't been released in Canada. So we were lucky enough, we still get hotels.com rewards. So I think we're going to see pullback on Expedia and changing their system. So maybe, if a lot of people aren't happy with WestJet's changes, they may do some tweaks.
Yeah, which is just good business and good marketing.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
listened, and listening. Back when I was at Air Miles, the number one reason that loyal customers or loyal guests were unhappy with the program is that no one listened.
Oh yeah,
That was
yeah,
it. Like,
yeah.
oh, I didn't earn enough points or I didn't get enough incentive. The number one grievance that people had with loyalty programs, and you're right, I've been in the business for a lot of years, is that you didn't listen. You
No,
didn't listen to me when
yeah,
I
yeah.
gave you advice.
Yeah, we see it all. I mean, it still happens to this day with programs across the board. Doesn't matter if it's a shopping program, airline, hotel. They don't. Yeah, they don't hear the customer's voice. They'll put together their focus groups and get whatever 20, 30 people in various cities and seem to come up with ideas. But 20 to 30 people when you have 5, 6 million members, that's such a small you know such a small percentage. It's not a good representation of the membership base. So. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm,
Cool.
I'm going to close on that if
Yeah,
it's okay,
yeah,
Patrick.
yeah. No, that was
So,
perfect. This was gonna be the close. I was gonna say, is there
no,
anything else you'd like to say?
yeah, one more point, and my advice. Oftentimes, I've noticed that the surveys I get for tell us about your flight experience, whether it's WestJet or Air Canada, seem to come most often when the flight left on time and landed on time. I always wonder, and maybe I'm the only one who wonders, how come I never get the survey when we were 2 hours late
Yeah,
and they had some sort of issue or something that was within the airline's control?
yeah,
I'm like, well, why do I never get a survey after those flights, but I always get a survey after a great flight?
yeah, yeah,
In a way, it just sort of feeds that listening. Well, I have more to say when things go wrong, unfortunately, than when things go right.
yeah,
10 out of 10.
yeah,
I don't know how much you learn from 10 out of 10 with an on-time departure and an on-time
yeah.
landing and no issues at all.
Like constructive feedback, right? There's no constructive feedback when everything goes right. So
Yeah,
I know, yeah, it
there
reminds
you
me. It's
go.
like a survey I received too. After a flight, saying, "Oh, how's your connecting flight?" And I wasn't on a connecting flight, so even the data behind that, there's some work to be
Right.
done. It's just yeah. At that point, I'm like, I'm not doing this survey. They don't even have this part right. So if they can
There
get
you go.
everything right and ask, so yeah. Yeah, so
Good close.
closing thoughts.
Okay.
Any other closing thoughts on WestJet or what we might expect to see? What do you think?
Back to just that, like, I would recommend they take time to listen to those frequent
Yeah.
flyers and understand their needs.
No, that's great. Perfect. Well, Saul, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Like I've always said, like I said at the start of the podcast, he's been part of the Rewards Canada community and family for a long time. I'm so glad that he was able to make this and have this discussion about the WestJet Elite changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick.
And that's all she wrote for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to spread the word of the podcast so we can keep bringing you the best loyalty rewards content in Canada. Share it with friends, hit the like button, leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform, and so on. If you're checking us out on YouTube, be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel if you don't do so yet. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.